What we saying, guys? Welcome to my comprehensive Bardock guide for Dragon Ball Fighters up until this point. In this guide, I'll try and cover all the things I do with Bardock, and I'll be explaining to you how I do what I do and why I do it. I want to thank you guys for all your support. I would greatly appreciate it if you like and subscribe, as we're getting closer to 2,000 subscribers. Well, that's enough from me. Let's get into it. So let's start off with Bardock's 5L. Bardock's 5L has medium block stun. What does this mean? It means that it has a higher attack level than other 5Ls in this game. I think apart from UI Goku. And UI Goku's is 7 frames and ours is 6 frames. So this is one of our power buttons, right? It's 5L. It's a very good conditioning tool. You can continue to use it, right? To get your opponent to press a button. It moves Bardock forward, which is good. Because anything that makes your opponent feel pushed back, anything that makes them feel frustrated is good for you, right? You want to make them feel frustrated. This is part of the conditioning process for Bardock, right? You want to make your opponent feel frustrated. You want to push them into the corner. And this is what Bardock does. Bardock strings tend to push your opponent into the corner. You can see how far we've got them with a basic block string, right? But back to his 5L. So this has medium block stun. Now what does this mean? It can mean a couple of things. Let's go with the cons first. It means that from 5L to DR, it's not really effective for us. Why? Because due to this, Bardock takes a longer time to start up the 5L to DR process. If you get somebody like Goku who has no medium block stun, a lower attack level on his 5L, he can go from 5L to DR and it recovers a bit quicker. He can catch his opponent off guard much more easy than we can do, right? But there's things to fix that. However, this is where it really shines. Bardock's 5L into 2L, if you delay it long enough, right, you can delay it for 15 frames. Now 15 frames is the magic number, because when you get to the 15, it looks like you've delayed the button. However, right, it's not a delay, it's a true string. So the best way to test this is if we put this on guard first only, and you want to practice going from 5L to 2L. Look how long that took, and it was a true string. If I take any longer, as you can see, that's 19 frames, Trunks gets hit. But if you can find the magic timing of getting that to around 15 frames, right, you see we're getting 16. 14, you see, it gelled, it's a true string. 15 is where you want to get to, right? So just practice 5L to 2L, and that is a very, very basic but simple string in which you can use to open up your opponent. The reason is, because of the medium blocks on our 5L, it allows us to delay our 2L string, and it's still true strings. And the longest we can do this up to the 15th frame. So this is where Bardock's 5L really shines. This is our power button. Now our 2L is one of my favorite buttons because it has a very decent and deceptive range, right? As you can see, it is one of the longest reaching 2Ls in the game. And it is a very good spacing button. As you can see, at this range, I think if Trunks is to whiff a 5L here, you see it whiffs, and around this range we can punish with 5M, 2M, all this kind of stuff, right? So Bardock's 2L is fantastic for maintaining pressure and spacing. As you can see, Bardock can continue to go into 2L. Now what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to get a rhythm. You can do 2L, 2L straight away. You can do 2L dash 2L, right? Mix these things up. This is how you want to confuse your opponent. They could think that you're doing this, right? 2L, 2L straight away, and that's it, you go into another button. However, you can continue to try and reset your pressure by starting the 2L again, and it looks like it's continuously going on. Do you understand? By doing things like this, by confusing your opponents in this kind of way, it allows you to gain the upper hand in the conditioning process because they don't know what you're going to do next. A confused opponent is a defeated one, right? You want to defeat them with your mind games. So when it comes to Bardock's 2L, this is a fantastic way not only to space yourself, but also confuse your opponent into what you're doing next, right? You could do 2L, 2L, you could do 2L, 2L into a button, you could do 2L micro dash 2L, right, like this. You could do 2L micro dash 2L into a DR. Many different things you can do to try and confuse your opponent just off a 2L. So our 2L is a very good spacing tool, and we can use it to reset pressure. Next is our 5M. Now our 5M is a very, very good button. Reason being is because it moves us forward, right? As you can see, Bardock is moving forward with 5M. Now this can be spaced. Point blank, as you can see, is -4. This can be -1, right? If you get the right spacing, this can be -1. It is very, very good. What does this mean? If you can space it to be -1, it means that look how close we are to trunks and we're -1. We can essentially reset our pressure with a 5L or continue again. Do you understand what I mean? This is a very good button. You want to know your ranges. Practice your ranges to get in this to -1. It is going to be very useful for you because they think that this is a button that you can just stop your pressure from. It's -4, or you have to go into another button, right? But this could also be used as a reset point, right? If you get the spacing correctly, it's around -2, -1 range, you can reset your pressure and start again. Being able to do this is very crucial for Bardock's game plan because we're all about conditioning. We're all about getting to our opponent's mind and letting them play our game, right? You can also catch them from quite some far ranges. You can do some strings and then catch them with your 5M. So this button, it continues to just get in your opponent's face, and it's also a good spacing tool if you know the ranges to make the frame advantage better for you. This is one of the best things about Bardock. He has variable frame data on some of his buttons. Not all of it is the same. And if you can use this to your advantage, you'll be able to continue to execute his game plan and open up your opponents. So our 2M is our main spacing button, right? So with Bardock, as you can see, from these kind of ranges, it's very easy for you to get a 2M. Now, point blank, if you do 2 in a row, it kind of spaces you at a point where you can't really be punished with a 5L. You don't necessarily have to do that, but it's one of the things that he can do. If you do a basic string like this, our 2M spaces us, right? And how are we going to get back? Well, one thing I want you guys to practice is to micro dash 2M with Bardock. By being able to micro dash 2M with Bardock, as you can see, we can kind of hit them from deceptively long ranges. This is where our 2M shines, right? We space ourselves at ranges where we can't really hit them, but then we do a little micro dash, right? And we kind of close the gap. So one thing I want you guys to practice your micro dash 2Ms with Bardock. This is our spacing button, and you need to know what ranges you can hit from. You need to know the max range because it allows you to whip punish from a further range. So let's, for example, put trunks to 5L after a basic string that ends in 2M. You can whip punish him, and that's a medium starter. Very simple stuff like this, right? You understand what I mean? At that range, we couldn't really hit, but if we practice the micro dash 2M, in that situation, it would have been easier for us to actually hit him, right? So what I want you guys to do is practice your micro dash 2Ms like this, and then you'll be able to actually whiff punish much easier. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do both our heavies together. So our 5H is very good in terms of range. As you can see, we can kind of hit our opponent from very far. It's not safe, so end it with a lariat, right? Or end it with a safe button, right? What you want to do from this range, you can actually get in very easy and call in assist to lock your opponent down. So this can be used from quite a far range to get in, and you can just use it to lock your opponent down and start your pressure, right? This is just to check. It's also very good to frame trap after a couple buttons. You know, especially after a 5S is very good, right? You could use this 5S point to reset pressure, but then you hit them with a 5H, right? Our 2H is very good. It is very good for stopping super dashes. It's very good for scrambles and just locking your opponent down. For example, if your opponent was jumping, right, and you're just here and you kind of just catch them in the air and then continue your pressure like that, it is very good for stuff like that. So one thing I would say is our heavy buttons are good, our 5H specifically for its range, and our 2H for kind of catching and stopping your opponent in place. One of the new changes that came with this patch is our 5S is now -1. This is amazing for us because this can now be used as a really strong reset point, especially in the corner. So for example, whatever we do, this is -4, just 5S. Look how close we are to the opponent. So our 5M brings us close to the opponent anyway. Look how close we are to trunks, right? But look at our frame advantage. So why not just get better frame advantage and keep the same range? This is what our 5S does. It really allows us to be a bully in the corner, right? A lot of people think of this as like another plus on block situation. It kind of is. If you've conditioned your opponent to believe so, it really is, because literally after anything we can just take our time back. This is almost 0 on block. This is literally almost 0 on block. Look how close we are to this. This is as close as we're going to get to an instant plus on block button for Bardock, right? But we need to condition them first, because at the end of the day we are still minus. Alright, what we can do with this is when we're here and we feel like our opponent is respecting us, just continually do this and take our turn back. Very simply, just take our turn back with this, right? Every single time we're here, just try and take our turn back, frustrate them. You know what I mean? Put them in a situation where they don't want to be. After unsaved buttons, this is very good just to make it safe again. Very safe in fact. Because this is what? -8. Got a simple 5S and now we're -1. And look at where we are. Do you know what I mean? One thing I always believed is that if we could actually be -1, let's say we could control how far our 5H puts us, right? Let's say we do a 5H and it puts us here. And then we do this and we're -1, right? Let's say we're -1 around here. That would be very strong for Bardock. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So one thing I'd say is, if your opponent is scared, 5M into 5S is very strong. He puts us right in front of us, right in front of them, and we are -1 to take our turn back. Anytime you're unsafe, you kind of want to do a 5H. You kind of want to do 5H into 5S, right? 5S makes us safe instantly, even if we're not thinking of it. If we don't want to do this, we can just do this and we have better frame advantage. So our 5S is a very good reset point. It's very good for, like, for example, baiting that reflect as well. It is very, very good for baiting that reflect as well. As you can see, our opponents love to do this. I always get something like this when I play matches. When you know how to use it properly, this is very strong for baiting that reflect. So a simple string like this, into 5S, they reflect, and that's them done. You can delete them, you can TLD them from there. Our 5S is very strong, use it. So now onto all our air normals. Our JL is very good, as you can see. It's very good for mobility. It doesn't really stop you too much from being mobile, right? It is very good for mobility. It can also be used to track the opponent down, right? When they're in the air. It's very, very good to just stop them in place, keep them down, you know, bring them down to the ground, and then continue what you're doing. This is very good for stopping opponents from super dashing at you as well, right? Our JM is very, very good. It hits twice and it can really just stop your opponent in place. As you can see, look how easy we brought Trunks down to the ground. This is fantastic. It hits twice, it has very good range, and you can see how far we went to just stop him from doing what he was doing, right? So I would say when it comes to air-to-airs as well, JM is very, very, very strong. And our JH, as you can see, if you're doing it backwards and your opponent is super dashing at you, it can easily stop them and keep you safe at the same time. But for bringing opponents down, it is very good. As you can see, we just stopped everything Trunks was doing there with one button. Like, come down and start our pressure. So I'd say in the air, going backwards, you kind of want to do JL, right? Going forwards, JM is very, very good for closing the gap. And then if you're in a very good range and you just want to stop everything, JH is very good forwards and backwards. But I'd say you have to know when to use all three of them. They're all good for different reasons, but they're all strong regardless. So next is our Raging Meteor. And obviously this is good as a combo ender, not really too much to it. I mean, you can kind of get your opponent to come down. I've been thinking about Tiger Kneeing it. Tiger Kneeing it is going to help, I think. I'm trying to think of a mix-up I can do by Tiger Kneeing this button. I'm going to think maybe there's a way I can get some sort of cross-up or something. I haven't tested it yet, but not too much to it at the end of the day, you know what I mean? I think if you Tiger Knee it in the corner, you can actually get some decent frame data changes. Let me see. What's going on? Yeah, managed to make it -2, -4, stuff like that, right? If you try and Tiger Knee it, I think it makes the frame data just a little bit better. So one thing I definitely say is try and Tiger Knee it to see if you can actually get some frame data changes that will benefit you. Anything that's more plus is better for us, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're about. We're about safe normals plus on block, taking our turn back. So if you find a way to manage to make this even safer than it is before, like I just made the heavy one -2, and it'll greatly help you. But yeah, other than that, just use it to end your combos when you're not sure. And if the opponent's in the air, you can essentially use it to come down if you Tiger Knee it. But other than that, that's what it's used for. So yep. Right guys, onto Bardock's Lariat. As you can see, the frame data is good. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we get beat out by Q Blast, so use this sparingly. Right? This is a very good anti-air. You guys can be buffering this, right? When your opponent is there and it super dashes at you, it's very, very good for anti-airing, right? This is good for catching people. The heavy one is very, very good for catching people. Why? because of 6 frames. It's also good for clashes, but I'm going to get into that later on. But the most important thing is, this is like, you want to get in with your lariats, pull an assist, and move from there. That's the best thing. You know what I'm trying to say? Now, when it comes to the medium one, a very important thing to note for this move in particular is you want to learn how to tiger knee it. This is our J236M. When you tiger knee it, look how close to the ground you can get it to happen, right? Why is this important? This is important because when we want to take our turn back and be plus, we tend to do this. This can take too long, right? So for example, what we can do, let's set this to guard first only. We can TK this, vanish, and we've got our turn back, just like that. We don't always have time to do our plus on block move, especially in 1v3 situations. We need to, because they're looking for it in 1v3 situations. They know he needs to get his turn back somehow. He's by himself, and this is the only button to do so. This takes too long. So sometimes you just have to tiger knee, vanish, and take your turn back. As you can see, it jailed, right? Because it works. If we do a normal lariat into vanish, it won't work. Trunks get hit, he gets hit out. But when you tiger knee it into vanish, it jails. We take our turn back and we go from there. So that's why it's very, very important for you to learn how to tiger knee the medium one. And the reason why you need to learn how to tiger knee the heavy one is for the mix, right? Learning how to tiger knee this is very, very good for your mix, especially when they get down in the corner, right? Let's say he's jumping and then you just want to be able to get in like this, and mix is very important. The timing depends on how high they jump and where they are in the air, but if you learn to get this down, it will help your mix in the corner. Now another thing you can do is, I've been trying to work on this, I haven't got this down perfectly, but what you can do is, so you see how sometimes people stop after a button, so they press a button, they stop, and then they mix, right? What we can do is, after a button, or maybe in a plus on block situation, we just go straight into TK, assist, and then we kind of mix from there, right? Something like this. This could catch them off guard, right? After a button, you just quickly TK, and then you go into a mix. This is very important. Know how to TK your lariats. It changes the properties, and they can be used for different things. They can be used for mix with the heavy one, right? It can be used to take your turn back with the medium one. This is very important and a must learn for Bardock. Neutral Bardock now is more of a counteractive thing. Like, we have to be very, very counteractive and assess what the opponent likes to do. We have to find out what their needs and tendencies are in neutral, and we just counteractive. They like to do a lot of key blast in neutral, make sure we've got the buffer, and then we moon jump out of there and close to them. We need to be very smart. If they like to jump, we use our lariat to catch them. If they like throwing out destructo discs and beams, we try and snipe them with a level 1. We need to be thinking in this way. We can't just be ignorant anymore and get in with our lariats. This is not how it works, because the key blast, simple key blast will stop us, and our lariats can't go through key blast. So we need to think. We need to play a more counteractive playstyle against these kind of characters. And if you think like that and look at Bardock as somebody who can't make too many mistakes in neutral, you improve your neutral Bardock. Now the first thing I want us to try and get to master is learning how to moon jump out of block stun with Bardock, especially against characters that have key blast. So what I want you guys to understand is that because we are not very strong against key blast and zoning, and we're susceptible to all these different kind of things against like characters like Super Baby 2 and all this kind of stuff, we need to know how to deal with this and get close to them very quickly and effectively. So what I want you guys to understand is learn how to do this. So I've set up an exercise where I'm going to throw a key blast, the G will throw some key blast, and I will press the light button, right, and the special button at the same time to help me moon jump over the key blast whilst he's doing them. This is the most effective thing that we can do, guys, because characters are going to want to zone us, because our lariats can't go through all of these different kinds of key blasts. We need to know how to actually moon jump over these kinds of things, right? So the best thing to do in this situation, as I did before, is when your opponent is zoning you, whilst you are in block stun, I want you to press the light attack, the special button, and then moon jump. Oh, it didn't happen there. But then moon jump out of the block stun to get close to them, right? That is the best thing for us to do. This is the most efficient way for us to get close to them without taking any risks and getting hit. So you need to practice this if you want to learn Bardock. The next thing I want you guys to do is learn how to buffer 214 and 236 in neutral whilst you are doing anything. So you could be doing an IED back and you buffer 214, or you do an IED back and you buffer 236. This will help you a lot when you are playing neutral with Bardock, because opponents like to super dash a lot, and this stops super dash, this stops super dash, and buffering a level 3 will stop super dash also. So what I need you guys to do is to practice this. Do a moon jump or a super jump in the air and just try and buffer as much as you can before you get to the ground, right? See how many times you can get a buffer before you touch the ground. This will help you a lot. Now, when your opponent super dashes at you, you'll tend to be IEDing backwards, right? Not prepared. However, if you're buffering, by the time they get to you, you'll be able to punish with a 236 or a level 3 or whatever the case may be. So I'm going to show you an example of what you need to be doing when they do this to you. Alright, next thing guys, obviously we know that we can punish beams with level 1, right? Now this may not be ideal all the time. There was a time I was able to do this consistently. Maybe beginning of this season I was doing this quite consistently to people who just be throwing out beams. I punish it with my level 1, but it is possible. We have a level 1 that can do this. Now this will deter them from using beams. If they have things like beams or destructo disc and things they just throw out in neutral, you can punish this with level 1 and level 3. Ideally level 1, because the meter usage, if you whiff level 3, you're kind of finished, right? However, with a level 1 it's not as bad. You don't lose that much meter and you may not get as punished as hardly, right? When it comes to this kind of stuff, buffering is key. As I've said before, practice the buffering as I mentioned before. However, it is very possible. If we can get to the point where we can punish things like beams and destructo disc with level 1, it will be a very, very big plus for us. So when it comes to Bardock, there's no magic block string, right? At the end of the day, most of our normals are safe. It's about what we want to achieve and how our opponent plays, right? If our opponent likes to mash a lot, let's do a block string that spaces us at a range where we can whip punish them. You know what I'm trying to say? Where we can make our normals a bit more safe, where we can whip punish them with 2M. If our opponent is very, very patient, let's try and test their patience by using the Tyrant Lancer, right? Mid-screen and see what they do. If our opponent likes to do raw level 3s and DPs a lot, let's keep it short. Let's keep our block string short. And then when they do that, they can essentially kill themselves. One thing you can do is understand that Bardock's block strings can actually push their opponent very, very far back. It doesn't take much to bring them into the corner and start the Tyrant Lancer game, right? The conditioning game in the corner. We already know they can't backdash here, so it's in our favor to do the right thing here and get them here. It all depends on how they want to play. So what we can do is we can mix it up. Mix up the tempo. If you're trying to aggravate them to do something, do things like this, right? You're aggravating them and then you just keep it nice and short because you think they're going to press something. Do you know what I mean? You have to do this off experience. It takes time, but depending on how your opponent plays and what you want to do, you can switch up your block string. I don't really cross up too much with Bardock. Our cross up isn't the best. I don't really like it. What I like to do is I try to get them into the corner. I try to see what their tendencies are mid-screen. I try to take them into the corner and then I try to pressure them with this. Not all the time. Sometimes I keep it nice and simple. Sometimes I go for 6M. It just depends. One thing I want us to try implement, and I'm trying to implement myself more so now than before, is that I keep the block string short and then going for a mix. Right? Not necessarily like that, but you want to time it so it's very fast. So the super jump is fast, you fast forward or you go high, right? So you might just stop on a button. Because all our buttons are safe, they might think that we're going to 2M after the 5M, right? You could go for a carry cancel, or you could actually just go for quick mix. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Switch it up, keep your opponent guessing. This is the best thing to do. But this only really works on, as I said before, a patient player. Somebody who mashes will mash every single time and frustrate you. So what do? You delay your buttons. You can delay your buttons, you can catch them mashing. You could just do things like, if you find out they like to mash after mediums, you could just go into your lights and then quickly just go for a DR. Many different things you can do. It just depends on what your opponent likes to do. So what you need to do is try and counteract them by using your block string to gain information on them and then acting accordingly. As I mentioned before, Bardock's 5L into DR isn't the best due to the fact that he has medium block stun behind his 5L. So what we can do is we can use our 5M, our 2M and our 5S to Kara cancel into DR to kind of throw our opponent off in this situation. So for example, as you saw, I just did a Kara cancel of 2M, and the way you want to kind of set this up is you don't want to do a 2M straight away. You could do a 5L, 5L, 5M, and then after the 5M, you could just do a 2M, or you could Kara cancel the 2M, right? To make them think that you're going to do a 2M, but you're actually doing a DR. And in that way, you add like a little mind game. You can do an actual 2M, or you could just do a Kara cancel 2M. That's one thing you can do. You can set this same way up with the 5M as well. Instead of doing a 5M after the 2M, you could just go like this. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You can literally just do the Kara cancel after. So since it moves forward, it looks like you're gonna do a 5M. However, you actually just cancel it into DR, and Bardock goes like this. As you can see, it looks like he's gonna do something, but then he just cancels it into a DR. This is very, very strong, right? Especially in the corner for 5M. Now, 5S, you look at Bardock's hand, you see the key blast when he does the Kara cancel. If you look closely, you can see the key blast is about to come out, and Bardock actually does the Kara cancel into the DR, right? So you can mix it up like this. Instead of doing the 5S after a string, you could just go into the Kara cancel 5S. And this is one of the best things that you can do. Instead of us doing 5L into DR, you can Kara cancel all these different things to allow you to see whether or not you're going to actually do your string or do your Kara cancel. It throws your opponent off, and it makes your normal block strings much stronger because they don't know whether you're going to continue doing your string or whether or not you're just going to do a Kara cancel. And this is something I feel that all Bardocks need to learn how to practice. This adds layers to your normal block strings and it puts fear into your opponent. What are you going to do? Are you going to Kara cancel DR, or are you going to continue the string? So when it comes to Bardock's plus on block mind game, there are many things you have to take into consideration, right? So after this, yes, we are plus 4, right? Which means we can take our turn back. Only to a degree though. Why? Because when we're mid-screen, your opponent can do a lot of things. For example, this is Super Saiyan Vegeta. Super Saiyan Vegeta has a DP. He does not have to respect me taking my turn back. So once we've done this, yeah, we need to think, what character are we doing this against? How much bar do they currently have? And what options do they have? Now Vegeta, let's assume this is not Vegeta and he doesn't have a DP, right? Mid-screen, what else could he do right now with no DP and no meter? Well, he could backdash. And that completely eliminates anything we're trying to do here, right? As you saw, I was mashing light attack and that's the best I could get, right? So let's say I now know that he's going to backdash. What can I do? I can dash forward 2M. That isn't always the best thing to do though. Why? Because let's say they know that they've done the backdash to that before, and now I'm going to dash forward 2M, right? As I'm dashing forward, I now get hit with a 5L. I've given up my turn. So this is where the mind game has to go in. The first one, you might just have to try and take your turn back, regardless of whether they backdash it, right? At worst, at absolute worst, right, the most you're gonna get is a whiffed 5L. Yeah? At worst. However, you've gained information, and this information is very, very key. Now, the reason why you want to kind of bring them into the corner, I'll explain in a second, but when you charge it, let me turn this off. When you charge it, we are +8. What does this mean? right? When you see the dust underneath Bardock's feet, that's when you release it and you're +8, yeah? What does this mean? This means that they cannot backdash us, okay? This means that they cannot backdash us. We can choose string, right? They can't backdash straight away. What is the problem with this? This takes too long to come out. It's way too long, just so they can't backdash. So how do we solve this problem? We go into the corner. Why? Because even if we do the normal one that's just +4, where's he backdashing to? He's getting hit. Do you know what I mean? Where is he backdashing to? So now that we've got Vegeta, he doesn't backdash anymore, right? And there's nothing he can do. He's in the corner. What happens when we add meter into this? Right? Now we've added meter into this, we need to think. We can hit him all day long, but now he doesn't have to do that. Now Vegeta can just use his meter. Now Vegeta can just use his meter. And we get hit. We need to take these kinds of things into consideration when we are fighting these opponents. If Vegeta uses his meter for a level 3 or a DP, we can get punished. So we need to think, who will we fighting, what options do they have, and how do we counteract this whenever we use our +1 block move. This is the mind game. So how do we put the mind game in our favor? Well, it's a risk regardless, right? It's a risk. We have to look at things such as meter, we have to look at our opponent's options, and we also have to look at our health. Can we afford to take the risk? For example, look at this now. Let's say our opponent's health isn't the best, right? Let's say their health is not the best. Their health isn't the best and we're doing this and we're chipping away at them, right? I'm telling you, at some point they are more likely to press a button. When their health is more, they're less likely to, right? So after this is where you might want to just do a quick forward dash and block, do a quick dash block, and then see what they're going to do. Or you could just do it and just stop and do nothing whatsoever. Do nothing at all and see what they're going to do. Because sometimes it's better to give up your turn than lose your character. There's no point. This is very tough. It's not all the time that you're going to be able to continually do this and then see what your opponent is doing. Another thing we need to take into consideration is if our opponent likes to reflect. If our opponent likes to reflect a lot when we do this or when we press a button, we could try and bait this out by holding out and pressing the button, and then we can delete them from there, right? Many things we can do. If we find out every single time we do this move and we press, they're just reflecting us out of it, we could do things like a delayed air dash that will catch them when they reflect. You see me do this a lot in my videos. This is to bait out reflect. There are many things you could do. You could try and DR, but at the end of the day, what if they press a 5L? It is a continuous mind game. One thing I've tried to do now is after this, I've tried to just quickly go up like this, maybe call an assist, do a quick super jump and see what the opponent does. Sometimes you have to do these kind of things to catch them out. So a delayed super jump air dash can actually catch a reflect. You can dash block after as well, which is very good because number one, not only are you safe, you can actually see if they reflect and try and punish with a 2M. There are many different layers to this mind game. It goes by an opponent on opponent basis, and you just have to take your time to dissect what their game plan is, how they like to play. Do they mash? Are they very respectful? Are they patient? And then fine tune this 236 plus situation into that mind game. You have to fine tune it to your opponent and find out what works for you in that match. At the end of the day, you can always stop and forgo your turn. That could be the safest thing. You can see what they do, and then if it's in your favor, you act on it. So when it comes to Oku with Bardock, you want to be ending it with either a JH, a 214M, or a 214H. And the reason is this: when you do these kind of combos, right, you want to be able to bring your opponent as close to the corner after that as possible. Look how close we are already. Just after that, right? Depending on whether they delay tech or not is a different matter. However, the more frame advantage we have, the better, right? Now, because of the new changes, we can actually end our combo short and still get the 214M Oki like this. Before we weren't able to do that, we just dash up and continue, right? This is very good because it allows us to maintain and continue our pressure after we've got our knockdown. If we end it with 214L, there's like a little lag period. You can't really move straight away after this. You know what I'm saying? It stops you for a bit before you can move. You do not want this. You want to bring your opponent as close to the corner as possible, as quickly as possible. And the fact that 214H does more damage is even better. So I would say 214M, 214H, and if you have to, JH in the air. These are the ways that you want to be ending your combos with Bardock. When it comes to the post 6M situation with Bardock, right, we have a 6-frame special move. What does this mean? That means anytime we're in a clash, anytime we do 6M, you could just do this straight away. If they do a 5L, we are beating them. They need to use their fastest normal, if not we win the clash, right? Fastest normal to my knowledge is 6 frames in this game, right? It's 6 frames. We have a 6-frame 5L and a 6-frame special move, which is our EX Lariat. Now we already know that specials take priority over lights. So why are we going to use our light attack when we can just use this? The downside is that we need meter for it, but that's not a problem. Because when it comes to the clash, when we're in the clash, we can just do 5L, and then when you're in a clash, you hold back and press 4L afterwards, so it'll be like this. And then you can do your 236M. Right, our medium lariat, and it will win, providing that they do not reflect. Now when it comes to reflect, DP, level 3, you need to look at their meter. You want to initiate the 6M mind game quite early with Bardock, and against characters that don't really have much to do. And if you can do it in the corner, even better. These are the kind of things you want to be doing. So I'm going to show you some examples on what we can do when it comes to this. Alright guys, so when it comes to Bardock's level 3, we don't really get that much mix. However, I've come up with a little setup myself. I don't think I've seen someone do this setup before. It's nothing special. However, I executed it quite well mid-screen, and I feel like it is a good compromise for a level 3 kind of mix at the expense of an assist. But before we get to that, let's talk about the corner. In the corner, we're around here after our level 3, and you can kind of get like a high-low, right? You know what I'm trying to say? You can kind of get like a high option here, and then obviously you go low, and then you get a low like that. The issue with this is if you don't time it properly, they could kind of 2H you out of it. They could press a button. There's a kind of a risk. So what I like to do after level 3, we're around here, I like to get a safe jump kind of thing and kind of mess with their mind. So what I do is I just go in, I do JL, right? I do a JL, wants to land. I get JL, and then after JL, I press the heavy button. Now when I do that, it does this. As you can see, you saw Bardock literally look like he was going to hit Goku with an overhead, but he didn't. Now by doing this kind of thing, it allows me to kind of mess with the opponent's head. What I like to do after that is I either like to do a gut punch, DR, or I like to take my turn back. Now if you mix all this kind of stuff up, it looks like you're going to press a button. So after you do this into the gut punch, they kind of don't know what's going on, and by then you've hit them. This works a lot. Let's say you've hit them the first time, the next time they're conditioned, they're looking for the hit, they're looking for the gut punch after you've done this, and you DR them, right? And then the time after that, they're looking for the DR after you've done this, and then you go and press a button. It won't work all the time. Somebody who knows how to block will just take it. But at the end of the day, one thing I'll say is this can really mess with their minds. I have opened up a lot of good players in the EU with this kind of thing. It's nothing special, but that's one thing you can do. Other than that, you just kind of have to practice around this range. I don't want to keep showing the level 3 because it's going to take up too much time, but it leaves you around here. After you do the level 3, I've shown in a video before how to do the moon jump out of level 3 animations, but what I'll say is have the dash macro on, press the light button, right? And then obviously I use the dash macro. When you hold the light button and you press the dash macro, it allows you to air dash, right? So what I like to do afterwards, after level 3 in the corner, I hardly go for this, but if I do, I press the light button, I press the dash macro, and then it's like a high-low kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? You either go high and then press JL, or you go low and then 2L. And that's what I like to do in the corner. So when it comes to Bardock's level 3 mix, right, mid-screen, what I like to do is this. I like to obviously get into level 3. I like to prepare myself to moon jump and call the assist at the same time. So I'm going to call Andre 21's assist. I like to do that kind of stuff, right? I think the best way for you lot to see this is if I put him to block after the level 3. So what I like to do, we do the level 3. Let's set him to block. Be prepared to moon jump and call the assist at the same time. And then obviously when you fast fall, you can either stay same side, you can cross up, and what the assist is meant to do is to stop them from backdashing. So let me set him to backdash. Let me set him to backdash. Right, perfect. Let's set him to backdash so you guys see what I mean. So we get ready to moon jump. We're gonna call the assist at the same time, and it catches the backdash. This is the whole point as to why I call an assist when I do this level 3. It's to stop them from backdashing. It's to stop them from mashing also. If he tries to mash whilst I'm doing this, the Android 21 assist actually stops him. Thus, most of the time they block. And when they block this, right, once they're blocking this, and we've done the whole moon jump into the assist, you get like a little mix. Let me set him to block. Right? Once we do the moon jump, you get like a little mix after the assist is called. And it's like a high-low kind of thing. High-low, left-right kind of thing, you know? You have to time it. Now, what I want you guys to practice is you need to practice moon jumping from that range out of the level 3 and calling an assist at the same time. Now I like to use these two assists because these assists, as you can see, Goku Blue kind of tracks from where the opponent is. So after the level 3, I'll be pressing this whilst I'm moon jumping and then try and get a mix like this. Android 21 is straightforward. It's a horizontal assist, it's fast and it will catch them backdashing. So once I've got into the level 3, I call the assist, I get ready to moon jump and I go high-low, right? Now timing the air dash for this is quite difficult. I kind of do left-right most of the time. And normally it catches them, and if that fails you can just go in for DR. It's very, very simple. So the main things about this is after the level 3 you want to time your moon jump, get an assist that will stop them from backdashing most of the time. A lot of these assists will hit meaty so they won't even be able to reflect in time. I'm telling you, this is quite strong when you get the timing down. So that's how I do the level 3 mix mid-screen. When it comes to Bardock's mix-ups, right, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to do super dash assist at very different times, right? You don't want it to be always at the end of a string and then do super dash assist. You want to do it very, very fast at unpredictable times where your opponent does not know what you're going to do, right? One thing I do is I have the super dash button mapped. It's mapped to a button on my controller, right? It's also a dash macro, which helps a lot. So what I do is literally at any moment in time I can just super dash off any normal. I don't have to think. Very, very fast. So if your opponent always suspects the super dash after the 5H, mix it up. Do it after the 2L. Right? You do the super dash after the 2L and then you just do super dash assist. When you mix it up like this, they will not be able to react all the time. There's way too much they need to think about because you can DR, you can do your plus and block move. There's so many different things. 6M, etc. So what I need you guys to do is when you are doing super dash assist, throw it in at times where they are not going to expect it. So the next mix is when your opponent respects you. You're in the corner with Bardock and an assist that can lock them down quite fast, right? You press a button. After you press the button, you just quickly go into like a high-low after, right? Quickly high-low. They won't respect. They won't really understand it because by the time they're trying to realize what's going on, you've got them in block stun. So after this, just quickly high-low, right? You can just press a button, stagger, and then quickly go for a high-low, that kind of thing. So this is when your opponent respects you. When they respect you, you disrespect them. You take the liberty, you take advantage of their respect, right? So they think, okay, Bardock's here, what's he gonna do? Alright, cool, Bardock's conditioned me, he's doing this, he's doing that. Next thing you know, you just hit them with this, and you're going high-low, right? Obviously, you need to get this down. This needs to be very fast. This needs to be very fast. You need to be able to time your air dashes after it as well. Right, switch it up. Sometimes you can do this into a Dragon Rush. Right, sometimes you can do this just into a low. Mix it up. When you have this kind of mix up, your opponent is going to be confused because they're going to be like, why did I respect him this much to do this mix? And then the next time you do something else, because they'll be looking out for this. This is how you mix up the mix-ups that you have to confuse your opponent. Now the next mix is a mix I think I did first. I haven't seen anyone do this before. It's the Bardock Janemba mix, right? With the 4-way. Right, it's a 4-way mix. And it's very good because the way I use the auto combo is to push the opponent back when I do this. You can do it off other normals, but I find it easiest to do with the auto combo. Why? Because by the time I've done the auto combo, wrong assist, the numbers kind of got him in block stun, then you can do the high-low float, right? The super jump fast fall, the slow fall, you do that high-low, and you control the float whether you want to go on the left or the right side, right? So how I do it is I tend to stay same side, because by the time I do this, they're a bit confused. I've gone over them, and you see Bardock does this kind of thing. He does this float kind of thing that it looks like he's going one way, and because of the pushback, he goes and lands the other way because of the assist. You need to practice this. You can actually get all 4 sides if you practice it. I say that's a cross up low. It's a cross up high. Same side low. Oh, you missed the high. And same side high, right? Practice this with high block stun assist. Now the downside to this is that the assists that kind of allow you to do this are mainly C assists, and because the C assists take a long time to come back, if you mess up this mix and do not hit them, now you have to go back to neutral with no other assist, right? You may not, if it's like Bardock and Janemba by themselves and you mess up this mix up, you now have no assist and you're back to neutral with Bardock with no assist, which is a myth in the first place. So if you're going to go down this route and try and mix up your opponent like this, try and get it down so you make sure it hits. So the next mix we're talking about is the EX Lariat mix, right? So you get the EX Lariat for your assist, and then you can do something like this mid-screen. Now this isn't always reliable. You may or may not be able to break your opponent's ankles with this. It just depends on your opponent, right? But you don't necessarily have to press a button. Sometimes after this you can just go for a DR. Obviously they'll land. The dummy is set to continue to jump. But you get the gist. Like, you just want to kind of do something like this with an assist that kind of locks them down, and then do what you can to confuse them. So mid-screen, if you have an assist like Android 21, maybe GT Goku, something like this, right? If only they allowed us to actually get like a left-right off this, this would be decent compensation for half a bar and an assist, but it's not that great mid-screen. But you can still get something, you can still confuse your opponent. You don't necessarily have to just press a button, right? You can't really get a high option with it, but what I like to do with Android 21 lab coats assist is I try to actually get a run under, right? Didn't happen there, but I like to get like a little run under afterwards once I call the assist, and then try and press a button and catch them, mainly with a 2M. That's the best reward, right? But yeah, that's pretty much it for this assist mid-screen. Not assist, sorry, this mix mid-screen. Using assist like GT Goku, Labcoat 21, and that's pretty much it. Just make sure you got your tiger knees down and then start mixing these guys. Alright guys, another mix that you guys can do is that when you're in the corner you can do like an instant air dash, EX Lariat, and then obviously you can steal the corner or stay same side. Depending on how high or low you do the IAD and when you pull the assist, I don't think this is the best, as at the end of the day you don't really get to retain an air dash for a high-low. So what I think you can do instead is, if you know how to TK or tiger knee your inputs, you can retain your air dash, okay? Or you could go low. Now by doing this and pulling an assist, you'll be able to either go high or go low, right? Let me try and get the high for you. Like that. If you guys are able to do this and TK the Lariat, the EX Lariat, you retain your air dash. Therefore it becomes more of a mix. The downside is there's going to be a waiting period between when you finish doing whatever you're doing and then doing this to get the mix. Okay, condition your opponents. If your opponent is patient, you can get away with this kind of mix. If not, I would suggest just going for the generic super dash assist and keep it moving. But these are some things you can do in the corner with Bardock. Well, that's it for the guide, guys. A lot of you asked me to do this before, and I hope it was informative and gave you a greater insight into what I think about and do when I play the character. Bardock's in a bit of a weird spot this season, but this is my favourite character in the show. so I'll try to continue to push the boundaries for this character for as long as I can and try and continue to level up alongside you guys. If you found this helpful, please consider subscribing as we're getting closer to 2K, and I'll catch you guys next time.